All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Real Results Show. We are live every single Wednesday at 12 p.m. PST, 3 p.m. EST. I am your host, Evan Transu, a.k.a. Health Coach Ev, and we interview real practitioners who have real results for themselves and their clients. Today, we are talking all about the hidden causes of insomnia with Martha Lewis. So, Martha, thank you so much for being here with us today, first and foremost.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm excited for the topic. I mean, this is something that I feel like I can relate to most of the guests that come on, and I hope that the people that are listening do not think I'm lying or something. I really did just have that many symptoms. Insomnia is certainly something that I dealt with throughout my childhood. I was always up late, never able to fall asleep, never able to get a full night's rest. I don't want to compare myself to those people who were up for days at a time. I know that's pretty extreme cases, but certainly there's different types of insomnia. So I'm looking forward to getting involved with that today and learning more about it. Let's start out first. I always like to ask this question. When did you graduate the FDN course, and how did you even get into it to begin with?
Well, I graduated in November, this past November, nice. 2020. That's a quick answer. How I got into sleep in general is with my own sleep issues. And I actually started off as a pediatric sleep consultant when my son didn't sleep well as a baby. And then even though I was helping families get their kids to sleep, I still wasn't sleeping. And so I did a lot of trial and error. I even took an adult sleep certification course to learn about, kind of the basics around sleep hygiene, things like turning off your screens before bed and not drinking caffeine past 2, and, looking very generally at diet and exercise and things like that. And it did help me for a little while. And then I went through a stressful time and got insomnia again. And then found out about doing this lab testing that I learned as an FDN. And so found out that I had a parasite, I had hormone imbalance, I had mineral imbalances, and was able to correct those and sleep much better. So now that's what I'm helping my clients with.
Very cool. And this is such a fundamental part of functional healing and holistic healing. And we all try to address it. I don't really know many practitioners that don't look at sleep, but just because, your eyes were closed for 8 hours does not necessarily mean you're getting good sleep. And at the extreme, of course, we're literally dealing with true insomnia. So let's dive in for a second a little more about to your own insomnia issues. I mean, again, this is a term that I think people, and perhaps they're using it inappropriately, I'm not sure, but I think that means many different things to certain people. Some will be like, hey, I sleep 4 hours a night, I have insomnia. Others, again, I know truly can be up for days at a time. So what did insomnia mean for you? Like, what did those symptoms look like?
Yeah, well, there is a true diagnostic definition of insomnia that's actually pretty hard to meet. It's 5 different criteria. So when I am saying insomnia, I'm definitely referring to something more general of just problem sleeping. For me, it was having a hard time falling asleep. And then I would also wake up at around 3 or 4 and be awake for at least an hour or for the rest of the night. And then just being tired every day as well. So you're right. Like, there are many different levels of insomnia. I'm talking about if you're not happy with your sleep, you're not sleeping well, you're not waking up rested. That's what I help with.
Okay, perfect. And I think that's much more relatable to a lot of people. I mean, I'm in the health space. I rarely hear about what you're talking about, that real extreme case of insomnia where people can't sleep for days. Thankfully, I don't hear about that often. But what you just described is something I hear about in my clients and FDN Thrive clients more often than not, to be honest. I know more people that are not sleeping well than not. So you go through FDN and you're getting these lab tests, and I'm sure you learned many other things along the way. But what are some of the things that maybe you found on your own tests? Because I know that you'd kind of brushed over certain things, like even like parasites. If I'm listening to this, and this is one of my first times hearing this, I'm like, how the heck does a parasite cause insomnia? So maybe we could focus in on some of those things that you said already. Let's start with a parasite. And can we make the bridge of how a parasite can lead to insomnia?
Definitely. Yes. I mean, first of all, when you do the Dutch test, which is that dry urine hormone test, it shows your cortisol rhythm throughout the day, throughout 24-hour period. Mine was sky high at night, in the middle of the night. So So I knew something was wrong there. And then I like to say the other tests kind of show why. Why is that happening? And so the GI map, that gastrointestinal map, showed that I had a parasite. I had H. pylori as well. And definitely, that imbalance of good to bad gut bacteria. Mm-hmm. And the reason why these things can cause insomnia is that they are nocturnal. And so it's at night that they are most active, and they're eating and excreting and releasing a lot of toxins and causing a lot of inflammation. Mm-hmm. And whenever there's inflammation, your body releases cortisol because it's anti-inflammatory. And then that's going to wake you up when that's happening in the middle of the night. So this is a big reason why many of my clients are waking up around 3 or 4 a.m. and having a hard time going back to sleep.
Wow. So that is both interesting and horrifying to think that these little critters are, I'm choosing to rest, I'm taking a break, and these things are coming out and just having a party and excreting stuff and causing toxic waste. That's wonderful. The other thing that you mentioned, and I know this is a big one, so I'd love to hear it from you because, I think you're much more well-versed in this than myself. I have kind of surface level understanding on the insomnia stuff. You had mentioned mineral imbalance, and I'm sure that's something that comes up a lot that you see. So again, kind of just like the parasite thing, can we bridge the gap here and explain to people, like they might know, all right, magnesium's a good thing, but how do mineral imbalances lead to sleep problems?
Yeah, definitely. And this is a little more complex, but when I do the hair tissue mineral analysis test, it's showing your mineral status. And if your minerals, especially your primary minerals, so that's calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, if those are out of balance, which most people's are, but especially if calcium and magnesium are high, sodium and potassium are low, is to slow oxidation pattern, that can lead to insomnia. Okay. And then there are other things, heavy metals, if you have copper toxicity, so too much copper built up in your body, then those things too can cause you to wake up at night. And it's partly because the liver is also most active at night, especially between 1 and 3 a.m. And so it's having to deal with these extra toxins at that time. And then if you have pathogens in your gut too, then that's even more toxins. But yeah, so if your liver gets kind of overburdened or congested at that time and it can't detox properly, then those toxins keep circulating in your bloodstream, causing inflammation, causing your body to release cortisol. So yeah,
it almost kind of, I don't want to oversimplify this, but it kind of leads to that same end result of why maybe the person's waking up. It is actually similar to the parasites, but the whole before was completely different to get to that end result. Is that correct?
Right. Yes,
really
exactly.
Cool. All right, guys. And obviously a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, of course, testing is wonderful, but you can also find a lot of hidden stressors just by doing some really basic things and asking or answering questions rather that maybe you've just never been asked before. So you can see it right in the captions below. You can drop the word hidden in the comments. And what we'll do is after the show, we'll send you the FDN Thrive survey and you can actually go through that yourself and we'll show you kind of what might be going on in your body. And if you have any of these hidden stressors that could be leading to some things with insomnia. I see we got a lot of viewers today that are live. If you're just tuning in, this is the Real Results Show. My name is Evan Transu, aka Health Coach Ev. We're live every Wednesday at 12 p.m. PST, 3 p.m. EST. And we're here today with Martha Lewis talking about the hidden causes of insomnia. So I think it's always so cool when we go through the FDN course or the FDN Thrive program, which is more for the people out there that they're like, listen, I'm not trying to become a practitioner, but I still know I need this stuff and I need to get better. And we find so many things on our tests and all this interesting stuff. But I'm curious because one of the things that you mentioned before is that you were doing more like pediatrics. When you were doing that, did you have any kind of functional mindset yet when you were working with these kids or no?
No, not at all. The philosophy for that is a lot different. It's more teaching independent sleep skills and not looking at anything in the body necessarily.
Well, and that was my biggest question because I was wondering like if she had this area of expertise of functional medicine beforehand or not, because that's what I'm curious. I'm like, what do they do for kids that walk in with sleep issues? And I'm going to guess, like you just said, it is completely different than what we might do with our practices, correct?
Yes, exactly. Although now knowing what I've learned now, I think with older men who have sleep issues and possibly other symptoms, like definitely the FDN process is going to apply there and can be really helpful.
Sure. Cool. So this is a question that I think a lot of people, especially our listeners, may have even heard of, but I'm definitely biased with this because I find it to be super interesting when it comes to health and sleep. Are you someone who has looked into it all or familiar with kind of the blue light thing and the getting AM sunlight to actually set our circadian rhythm? What level of weight do you put into that? Because in my opinion, I think it's wonderful, but I know that we need these other components. So I'm curious if that's something you even have dived into, and what weight do you put on that for people with insomnia?
Yes, well, it definitely depends on the person, because a lot of people I work with have already tried all of those things, right? So they've researched endlessly on the internet. Like we all know, if you have insomnia and you've looked up anything, to avoid screens before bed, to get out of bed if you aren't sleeping, those types of things. So if someone's already tried all that, then I know immediately that there's something more going on, and it's something in the body, and that's where the testing really comes in. But it's definitely a foundation that I make sure people are still doing and holding them accountable for, because it can make a big difference. And just in minimizing stress in general too, it's going to help to wind down before bed, to avoid those screens, and help to keep your body clock consistent pretty much. So yeah, it's now that I'm doing the testing is the biggest part of it, but those sleep foundations are still necessary for sure.
Okay, very cool. And that's kind of what I figured, because for me, but believe it or not, that was actually one of the biggest things that I ever did to get a good sleep schedule. And I unfortunately became dogmatic about it, at least in the beginning. I'm like, oh, well, this must work for everyone and their sleep issues. And just because it was, fantastic and life-changing for me, I found actually more often than not, it helps, like you said, but you need the other components. It's just one essential piece, but that doesn't mean that there's not other things there. So I would love to talk about too, where your insomnia is at now. And listen, we have practitioners that come on that are still absolutely in their healing journeys. I mean, there's no shame in that. I mean, that's most people actually, but I'm curious, how is your sleep nowadays? Do you feel like it's rock solid? Do you still have some improvement to make? And what caused you to get to where you're at right now? Was it just addressing those things on the labs?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely still in my journey somewhat. I say I'm 90% there. And so I sleep well most of the time, but definitely if I have additional stress, then that's going to derail my sleep. And I think for those of us who struggle with insomnia, and really, actually, no one's sleep is ever perfect, right? It's just not perfect 100% of the time. But, if I can help someone go, my sleep was not good 90% of the time, and now it's good 90% of the time, that is a huge improvement. And so
yes.
That's what so that's what I'm looking for. But I'm still working on things in my body. I'm still balancing my hormones. I'm still balancing my minerals too. I just finished a gut protocol. So I'm definitely on this journey, but yes. I really like that too, because I know it's everything that I'm asking my clients to do is what I have done, and I have experience with it. And so I think that helps me really guide them through it and make it as easy as possible for them as I can.
Absolutely. And I love the transparency there. And it's why I always ask that question, because I think it's so important for potential clients that come to you or the FDN Thrive program to know, one, you're working with real people who have been through these things. And two, listen, we're not promising perfection necessarily. We're always works in progress. But like you just said, if I'm talking to someone who, and I'm the guy maybe that has bad sleep 90% of the time, and I know that you had that and now you sleep well 90% of the time instead of bad, yeah, I'll take that. I would trade places, right? Pretty much any day. So that's super important. Now, you seem, I just get this vibe from you that you were probably working with clients before the FDN program. Is that correct?
Yes, I was. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Because you said you graduated in November, but you're coming on rock star confidence. So I figured that there was stuff going on before that. So how has your practice maybe changed in that sense? What was your approach before? Maybe the initial approaches to get people sleep better versus now that you have access to the lab testing? Has it changed a lot, or is it still fundamentally the same?
It's definitely changed a lot. I mean, because before I was looking at everything very generally, and still in a very holistic way, looking at diet and exercise and sleep hygiene, stress, all of those things that we do in FDN, but without the labs to show exactly what's going on in the body. And so, again, I was having some success with people who that was what they needed. That was the missing piece, was kind of the basics. And then there were some people who didn't get. And so that's why I'm so thankful to have found FDN, because now I feel like, there's always an explanation. If you aren't sleeping, it's because you're not healthy. There's something going on in your body that isn't right, because we're meant to sleep well. And so these labs help us dive into why that is. So, I definitely feel so much more confident that I can help people since graduating and talking about, everything I've learned and the principles and everything. Yeah, I think that's why I feel so confident and sure that this is the path that makes the most sense for people who are struggling with sleep.
It is amazing, because that's pretty much universally what we hear with people who go through the course. And of course, we focus more on like the FDN Thrive side of things now on this show, which is our consumer program, right? It's where you can actually work with an FDN practitioner. If you're out there dealing with this stuff, you've been following us, but maybe becoming a practitioner just isn't for you. But this is something we hear like universally. I was doing okay. I got some research done and I made a little progress, but you understand more of the why when you get these tests. And of course, we run our foundational ones on everyone. But what's so fun about FDN is if, God forbid, you're in that smaller percentage group that maybe needs something more advanced, you also have access to that as well, along with the education. So you're never going to run out of things to do here. Like you said, there is a reason, and you will find it eventually if you're diligent enough. And so I'd love to talk about some client successes. And even if these client successes were before FDN, totally cool with me. I would love to know, hey, like what's a story that really sticks out? Maybe someone was coming to you and their sleep was just terrible and now it's a lot better. But before that, I just want to remind everyone that just because we do the labs, those are wonderful things and advanced ways to find hidden causes of our insomnia. But there's also simple stuff that we can do, like surveys that we've gotten specific information on from talking with thousands of practitioners, taking tens of thousands of clients with the FDN program. So drop the word hidden in the comments, and what we can do is hook you up with the FDN Thrive survey. And that's basically a really cheap, free resource to kind of figure out some of the things that might be going on in your body before you do something with the lab test, because we want to show you that we can help you out before we ever offer something like that, right? So definitely drop the word hidden in the comments. And then Martha, to kind of go back to you, is there any story or stories that stick out where this client just had terrible sleep, they come to you and it gets totally turned around?
Definitely. I think one of my most recent clients was many nights only sleeping 3 hours a night. And the amazing thing was that he still actually felt pretty good every day. I don't know how, because I'm very sensitive to being sleep deprived, so I would be a mess. But anyway, many nights he was only sleeping 3 hours. A good night was 6 hours and very interrupted, like waking up multiple times, taking a while to go back to sleep. And he had tried so many things. Like he was into supplements. He had tried a whole line of supplements, gone to his doctor, gotten blood work done, pretty much everything. And so did all the foundational labs on him. For him, his gut was a big part of it, like probably 75%. He had Parasite, he had H. pylori, he had Candida, like on his GI map, which is means there's a pretty massive overgrowth. So he had a lot going on his gut. He had a lot of food sensitivities. And so that was a lot of it for him. And he started gradually sleeping better as we're working together the entire time. And he just emailed me last week and said, I have slept amazing the past 7+ nights in a row for the first time since I was 20 years old. Like, thank you so much. This is amazing. So yeah.
That's so cool. And I love hearing the stories in general, but I think this is special. And I think most people can relate to this, or at least understand it to some degree. When your sleep's taken away, not only is that stressful inherently, but it adds this extra psychological stress. Like I remember being a kid and knowing I have to wake up at a certain time. And every minute longer that I couldn't fall asleep, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be so tired. I'm going to be so tired. And then it's just this giant snowball effect where now you're stressed out from not being able to fall asleep. And of course, the lack of sleep is inherently stressful. So to give that back to someone is just kind of, that's a wonderful thing. That is really cool. Now, I want to ask one more kind of side question before we talk about your biz and like, what is your ideal client? Melatonin. And there's so many sleep supplements out there. I hear about melatonin a lot. And I don't mean to ask such a simple question, but I am curious because I've heard a lot of back and forth. Do you find that this is generally something that's going to help clients with insomnia, or does it not really do much? Because again, I've heard both and I'm so tired of the confusion, and this stuff's handed out like candy in the functional world. So I'm curious what you think about that.
Well, I think like any supplement, there's usually not one magic thing that's going to help.
Right.
And melatonin is only going to help if the reason why you aren't sleeping is because you don't have enough melatonin.
Sure.
So that is what I love about the lab testing, though, is because I was kind of against melatonin before I took FDN, kind of from more of a safety standpoint, and there aren't studies done showing its safety for long-term use, and the dosage is very debatable and everything else. But now when we do the test and that hormone test shows melatonin, and if it's really low, then it makes sense to supplement with it. But the idea, that I've learned about that is it's short-term. It's a short-term solution, and it's really a window into gut health because our gut is supposed to produce 90% of melatonin. And so we're going to possibly supplement it short-term, work on restoring gut health so that their body makes their own melatonin, and then that's not the issue anymore.
I think that's no, it absolutely does. And it's straightforward and simple. And that's what I was looking for, because usually that's how we clear through the clutter. Because I hear all these things of, you can't take melatonin long-term because it takes away your normal production. And then I found out recently there are no studies saying that whatsoever. Now, that doesn't mean it's not true. It's just never actually been proven. And so I'm like, I've been thinking certain things for years, and I'm just like, what is true and what's not? I think that's a very sensible answer. If you see it on the lab tests, this is where the objective data is useful. Okay, let's use it for a period of time. Clearly, it's a very powerful thing. And there's also a bunch of other things, guys, that you can do for free without ever running a lab test that can kind of give you some insight to what's going on in your body. So if you're just tuning in and you haven't heard me say this yet, I'll say it for one more time. You can drop the word hidden in the comments, and what we will do is hook you up with the FDN Thrive survey. And that's going to help give you some more insight into some of those hidden causes that could be leading or contributing to your insomnia. And if you are just tuning in again, this is The Real Results Show. We're live every Wednesday, 12 p.m. PST, 3 p.m. EST. My name is Evan Transu, a.k.a. Health Coach Ev. And we got Martha Lewis here today talking about those hidden causes of insomnia. Now, as we're wrapping up here, we got a few minutes left. I'd love to know, and I mean, I kind of have a guess here, but I'm sure you can add something to this. Outside of just having insomnia, who is like your ideal client? Like, this person comes to you with these types of characteristics, and you're just like, yes, I'm going to be able to help this individual.
Honestly, I mean, it is anyone with sleep issues. But again, I work with a spectrum of people. Some people, their only symptom is insomnia. And other people are unfortunately a little farther down the rabbit hole, and they have other symptoms happening. They have, hormone imbalance symptoms, for example, of say night sweats and hot flashes, or, things like that. They have digestive issues. They know they have food sensitivities or an autoimmune disease. So it's like the main thing I'm focusing on is sleep, but by doing all the foundational labs and helping with sleep, we're also helping with everything in general. So that's what's amazing about FDN.
Sure. All right. Well, you know what? We don't normally do this, but I got to give it a shot because I did catch it. So a lady named Donna asked, what do you recommend when someone has slept 8 hours but is exhausted and not refreshed when they wake up? And I know that's probably a loaded question, but to the best of your ability, what kind of answer would you give someone like that? And thanks for the question, Donna.
Yeah, so it could be many things. Definitely the quality of sleep, like someone wrote in there. You could have pathogens in your gut and they're not causing you to wake up that you remember, but they're keeping you from going into the deeper stages of sleep. And so you're not feeling as rested. But it can also be from mineral imbalances, from thyroid issues. There are lots of possibilities, from food sensitivities even, and like gluten sensitivity can be a big one. So yeah, there are multiple reasons why, but yeah, it's definitely something to address, because we should sleep 8 hours and feel great the next day. That's what we're going for.
Awesome. I think that's a great answer. And as we're wrapping up here, Martha, where can people find you? Because I'll tell you, I've been doing this for a little bit now, and I don't think I've ever seen so many. We get a lot of viewers afterwards, but this has quite a few live viewers the whole time. So I'm going to guess there's a lot of us out there dealing with some insomnia that they're like, okay, how do I get a hold of Martha?
Yes. Well, my website is thecompletesleepsolution.com. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram under Complete Sleep Solution. And on Facebook, if you look me up, I have a group as well called Sleep and Insomnia Help for Adults that you're welcome to join. And I talk about these hidden causes of insomnia all the time, so you can find out what it is and fix it.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And guys, don't forget to subscribe to the FDN Thrive podcast. And the reason I say that is because Martha doesn't realize this yet, but when we're off the air, I'm about to recruit her onto there so that we can actually have an hour-long conversation together, because this is a great topic. But listen, you've been listening to The Real Results Show. We're live every Wednesday, 12 p.m. PST, 3 p.m. EST. We've been talking about the hidden causes of insomnia with Martha Lewis. Martha, thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing your knowledge.
Yeah. Thanks, Evan.
All right, cool. We'll see you guys next week.